Hello, and welcome back to Everything's Political Podcast. I'm your host, Junius Williams, and today starts a new series called The Power of Music. Can't believe this is episode 1 of season 6. Now, here's a little introduction. Power of music. People all over are surrounded by music through family and cars, public transportation, on computers, streaming on the internet. Few of us think of music other than as a source of entertainment or annoyance, depending on your taste. I got somebody across the street on that category, the last one. But true to our belief that everything is indeed political, we now challenge our audience to think about and think beyond the usual and customary. Is perhaps music a source of power and therefore very much political? EPP 6 is all about the impact of Black music in our lives. Those of us who have experienced the power of music, we know that it can bring hope, provide a strong sense of identity, bring relief from the unpleasant, give release, which turns into joy, offer exposure to new and untried stuff, provide friendship, love, and introduce new skills way beyond the notes on the scale. With all that in mind, we want to offer a new perspective on the necessity to have music in our lives and to focus on how our institutions, especially schools, should pick up on what is occurring organically to further ensure that everybody benefits. Does the music give us hope, direction, a strong sense of identity? That's the kind of music I'm talking about. Skills that carry on later in life. For example, practice, friendships, exposure to imagination. All of this in face of systems at play designed to keep us down, off balance, divided, and otherwise compromised. Our musician guests, scholars, and music aficionados will give their opinions about the music in their lives. We're going to focus on the impact on individuals, especially young people, but also on groups, movements for change, impact on American and world culture. So let's get started. Who's your first guest, Lawyer Williams? My first guest is me. How about that? I have a special love for music, a special place in my life, and I just want to explain and share some of this. So here's my story. I'm going to start out talking about my mother, Bernice White Williams. Bernice White Williams, my mother, was a music teacher. She taught music in the public schools in Richmond, Virginia. She started me off on the piano, but my brother, my younger brother John, was better than me, so I just stopped playing it. Couldn't handle it. Big brother complex. So she handed me over to my father. My father, Maurice Langston Williams, he also was a music teacher in the schools. Just so you understand now, this was quite a change. My mother started her practice down in Norfolk, Virginia, and you might see that on the photo. She was the first Black music consultant in the school district, and my father was the first Black music teacher in the high school in Richmond. Want you to get that context. He taught me how to play the clarinet. My father's instrument was the violin and vocal. My mother was piano and vocal. Now, I got good, so Daddy sent me over to Virginia State College to talk with and play and practice with and learn from a man named Professor Gatlin. And I want you to understand, this is Richmond, Virginia. Petersburg, Virginia was about a half an hour or more away. Every Wednesday, my father took me to work with Professor Gatlin. And that's how I got even better. But in the high school band at Armstrong High School, Richmond, Virginia. Juanita Booker was even better than me. Juanita Booker was first clarinet. I was first clarinet too, but she was concert maestro. That meant my daddy let her tune the band. Now, my life is rooted in competition. He wasn't going to take the first chair away from her because she was better than me. I was good, and I decided I wasn't going to compete with her. So I learned how to play the alto sax. You're now going to see a picture of the Armstrong High School band. You're going to see a picture of the Armstrong High School orchestra. You know how big that band was and how big that orchestra was. This is the way it was back in the day. Segregated high school, segregated system of music and musicians. Next door was the choir room. I just want you to get the context of the music. I said it was all around. This was where a great choir was. Next, Professor Harry Savage had a men's chorus. All of this was going on at that time. Music was very important. Sixth period was for the band or the orchestra, depending on the season. The choir practices what they had to do. And I also got a picture here of the majorettes. You can't have a band, you can't have a marching band if you don't have majorettes. And I like that picture because at least three of those young ladies at different times I was in love with. Problem was I was too shy. Take a look at me. I was too shy, and they never found out I was in love with them. Anyway, back to me and the music. I learned to play the drums. Daddy also got a teacher for me in Richmond. I don't remember his name. I never played in the band or in the orchestra. I let them have it. The drummers were a special breed. I could play, but I didn't want to play. I wanted to play my saxophone. Now, when I say a special breed, he got tired of trying to get them to play what everybody else was playing in the band. So he would tell them to go out in the field next to the football field and practice. And that's what they did. They were good. They picked up what we had to pick up. Well, they were impatient, so he let them go out there and play. And then when it was time for us to perform, bam, they were on it. Now, lessons learned so far. Music early on defined who I was. I never left school right at the bell. I always was behind practicing with the band or with the orchestra, depending on the day. Went home when my father went home. I learned discipline. My father told me, you got to practice every day for half an hour. But I want to play basketball. I want to play football. I want to play baseball. Whatever the season was, practice and then go out and play. Now, as I got better, I did it more and more on my own on different instruments because I realized I was getting good. Number 3 lesson, music challenged the narrative of white supremacy. I forgot to tell you, I think I did tell you that this was segregated Richmond. I wrote about it in my book called Unfinished Agenda, Urban Politics in the Era of Black Power. And I'm going to just share this little bit. I'm not going to read a whole lot, but because I did write it down and I took time to edit and re-edit it. This is the social and political context of music. Long years of suffering brought other kinds of resistance. I saw my father in resistance as a music teacher at Armstrong, along with Joe Kennedy, the black music teacher at our rival black school, Maggie Walker. When Mr. Sanderson, the music supervisor, wanted us to march in the Tobacco Festival Parade. Not going to go into why this happened. Richmond was where they manufactured all the tobacco that was picked all over the South, Marlboro, places like that. And every year they had a parade, but they wanted the black schools to be in the back. And my father said, nope. Mr. Kennedy said, nope, we're not going to march in the back. So one day in my senior year, they relented. they said, okay, we're going to integrate. So it's going to be white, black, white, black. So this is what happened. I'm going to tell you the power of music here. There were four corners with the two white bands from Thomas Jefferson and John Marshall on two corners, and Armstrong and Maggie Walker on the other two. Each band took a turn warming up, showing off the prowess on the drums. Of course, the white bands ordained themselves to go first. We listened and began to titter and tee-hee at the stiffness of all that John Philip Sousa West Point Annapolis regimental drumming. We knew what Gregory Coleman and the drummers of Armstrong were capable of, and although we were rivals through the years, Walker's drummers came from the same source. So when it became our turn, each of the colored bands proceeded to blow them away with all that African bass, syncopated, fat back and cornbread, polyrhythmic, pre-funkadelic, backbeating New Orleans Mardi Gras soul we had been saving to reveal at this moment in history. In short, we rocked their world, shocked their falsely held belief that they were the best because they were white. White bands have precision, but black bands can strut, which requires precision and soul. It was on that corner that a mighty myth was shattered before young eyes of both races. That day we marched so gloriously, I could see it in my father's eyes, how proud he was of us, and in the applause we got from black people and white people alike along the parade route. I get a little teary every time I read that. I wanted you to hear that because that was a very important lesson in self-love and self-respect. Number one, my father could have lost his job for defying the director of the higher ups in the music department in Richmond. But he held out along with Joe Kennedy. Number two, when we marched, you couldn't hide the talent. And so everybody along the way was clapping, not just the black folks, but the white folks. Number three, those majorettes that I told you about, this was the deal. The people in charge of the majorettes didn't want them to flip the little skirts because they had little short skirts on. They didn't want to flip the skirts that they were marching by. You can't do that, they said. That day, they didn't bother with those majorettes because they were stepping high. So I say that because it was a defining moment in my life because I realized that maybe for the first time that the whole white supremacy thing had gotten into my head. And with the help of music, I destroyed a chip. We were beginning to change the narrative about who we were. And that's how music helped me get to that point. Now, my college choice was almost defined by my love of music. I wanted to go to Northwestern. I had seen Northwestern on the television at one of the bowl games. I saw that big old band. I said, I want to go to Northwestern. Got accepted at Northwestern, but my father and my mother teamed up and said, son, you don't want to major in music. You can't make money. You're going to have to do something else. Please don't look at us. Well, we weren't poor. We weren't rich, but we were somewhere in the middle there. And I listened. But at the time, I said, hey, I want to go to Northwestern. But I didn't get any money, no scholarship. In the meantime, Amherst College gave me a full scholarship. And there was very little music at Amherst at that time. I took my saxophone, I took my clarinet, and I was ready to play in the band. And instead of marching into the football game, the people in the band, which was about 10, 15 guys, we just walked in. Well, I said, hey, that's not my culture. I'm not going to be doing that. I put it aside, and that was that. But then one day, a worker with the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee came by my house, in my fraternity house. And me personally, I decided I couldn't be in the civil rights movement like I wanted to. That's another story. But I could let these guys come up and stay with us to get a little rest and relaxation. So Carl Johnson came by with a harmonica, and he started playing it. And I said, I kind of like that. So next day I went down the street in Amherst, Massachusetts, and I got two harmonicas, and that was the revival of my musical career. I bought more than one over time. I carried it around for me. I carried at least one harmonica with me all the time, playing it on the radio, learning it by myself. I don't read. I read music, but I don't read music on the harmonica, not on the blues harp. Well, I kind of had to turn and look at the chromatic harmonica, and you want to see a picture of me playing that. That I do read. So let's look at what that harmonica meant rather than whether I can read it or not, read the music or not. Music is a language. You got to learn to read it. So later on, when I came to Newark, one of my friends named Marcia Brown and I set up something called Return to the Source. It was a singing group. You're going to see a little clip, things that we've done. And it was a political group. We were singing freedom songs. We were singing songs with that kind of message because we wanted people to return to the source to understand that here was always a moment when we could cast the shadow of freedom, the belief in freedom somewhere. Sometimes Marcia and I would go and sing. This was in the early days. There were more people in our little group than there were in the audience. Later on, we added instruments. By then, I became a lawyer, but just to look at it, music was back in my life for good. You're going to see a picture of me playing a harmonica, a picture of me singing. So the lessons learned. Music is essential to my identity. I think of myself as a blues man.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmony of liberty, and let our rejoicing rise with the listening sky, and let us resound loud as the rolling steam. Roll, 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 sing a song of the faith that the darkness has taught us. Sing a
I
song.
started out one day just sitting in with a man named Clarence, Frogman Henry. I played my chromatic harp with Ellis Marsalis, who was the father of Wynton Marsalis, all kinds of people all over the world, different countries, built confidence in who I am as a person, as a musician, and it's been an outlet for my creativity. Now you're saying, what does that have to do with me? This is a series about people just like me. And we're going to talk about how music has impacted us individually, make life-changing moments possible, but also how music impacts us as a people collectively. Music propels music for change, like the civil rights movement. You're going to hear from some of the people on that level. Music helps people cope with overwhelming conditions, like folks who came to the North on the Great Migration. And more recently, folks who had to repair during the hurricanes in New Orleans. You're going to hear from people who understand the power of music in church. Music charges religious worship, and I'm talking about gospel music. Music is just what many young people need today, and they tell us this all the time, to make their lives so much brighter and clearer. And music makes the world a much happier place from blues to hip-hop and beyond. So I'm an advocate. That's what this is all about. We advocate here. If you don't have music in your schools in a meaningful fashion, people are missing something. Everybody wants the kids to take the test. Well, fine, we can take the test. But people might want to take the test and do well if you give them something that they really can hang on to. A part of my upgrowing, let's go back to Richmond. I told you about Armstrong and Walker High School. These were the two rival black high schools in Richmond. There was a network of those bands across the state. We were in competition with one another, but then there was I.C. Norcom in Newport News. There was Booker T. Washington in Norfolk. There were the black high school. And each one of them had their signature of music. And each one of those, if you ask those people one at a time what the music meant, they would share some kind of story that, like I've just told you. You can't do it if music is just a little bit of something sprinkled in. First of all, young people need to learn about the music itself, learn how to read it, learn the different instruments, learn the kind of sounds. I love the music that people produce with less, but let's have young people have an opportunity to practice music with more. So that's my hidden agenda for this. And music makes the world a happier place. So come on back and visit us the next time when my guest will be a homeboy of mine from Richmond, Virginia, in Goma Hill. He went to Walker. I'm going to give you a little balance. And Goma's going to show you one more time where music has taken him. In the meantime, keep your eyes wide open, and everybody go get just a little bit political. Everything's Political Podcast is sponsored by the Center for Education and Juvenile Justice with a grant from the Tarot Foundation. It is produced by ABF Creative with lead producer Shirley Rejoice. Our theme music is by Anthony Ant Jackson. If you like this episode, please subscribe to the Everything's Political Podcast on YouTube, press the red button, or on Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also connect with us on Facebook and Instagram. See you next time, and remember, stay political.